Hi, I'm Mitch, and welcome to the Restoration Road, where my guests today include Shirley Woods, the founder of the Ewell Wilson Center. Always insightful. Shirley, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
And sitting beside Shirley is bodybuilder, professional volleyball player, indoor and outdoor extraordinaire, USA national champion, owner of Empowered Sports Academy. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir William Robbins.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Mitch. Always wonderful to have you introduce me. It makes
And
me
this
feel
is
better
Kelly.
and better every
Yeah.
time.
So anyway,
And Kelly Bird.
the Bishop,
That's good.
Kelly Bird, love how you're teaching leadership throughout our community and at Sweetwater. You're leaving a mark. It's going to be really, really cool to see how all those efforts pay off for generations to come.
Thank you. I'm very, very grateful.
Here's your question today. When conflict arises, when two objects attempt to occupy the same space at the same time, do you respond wisely? Would those closest to you say that you're characterized and known as an understanding person? Go.
No.
Depends on who you ask. My wife, no.
It was
Yeah,
going
my
really good
employees,
until you said that whole "those closest to you." That's where it got a little dicey.
Proverbs 9:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Can you talk about how your husband has just been unwise and not understanding in conflict? Or you could talk about yourself.
Well, we all have to answer. There are times that we do well, but there are times we don't do so well. I really believe, for me, really depending on the Holy Spirit, spending that time in His presence. You know, you prepare for war in the time of peace. So if I'm spending time with the Lord and the Holy Spirit, I learn so much. That listening that we were talking about, you learn, you listen. And so I can remember the days being the foolish one. But just from spending time with the Holy Spirit, the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding that comes from that prepares me for whatever comes my way. And when I don't know what to do, that's the best time to be quiet until you can hear what the Spirit is saying.
Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent.
That's right.
William, how about you? You said your wife, Ashley, might not say you're characterized and known as an understanding person. Why would you say that?
You know, I think, just any relationship. I mean, they always say that, those you care the most about, in those situations, a lot of times in those relationships, you don't extend as much grace or mercy or, you're with those people every day. So in different situations, you're so quick to judge or to be confrontational instead of continuing to have patience and to continue to just be quiet and listen and try to understand and try to come up with a peaceful solution. And it's really kind of funny because actually at work, around employees or around parents of kids who I train, that's usually the biggest compliment that they
You're
give
known
me.
for that.
I'm known for that.
You are. Well, that Will Robbins, he's one understanding guy. It's true. No, he is.
And so, and I've dealt with a lot of adversity and a lot of confrontation, and God has blessed me with a lot of peace. But I think it's sometimes that in those situations, we're quick to go to the Lord because it's dealing with our business or if it's dealing with relationships with individuals and customers and different things. And too many times, I think in relationships, because you're with that person, you've been together so long, it's just, you almost take it for granted. It just becomes routine and you're not continuing to work on that relationship and being proactive and really doing everything that you can to continue to build this relationship stronger and stronger. And so, it really is something that, it's something that I'm personally working on, because obviously I love my wife dearly and would sacrifice my whole business and everything for my wife. So it is kind of, it really.
It really is. I think it's at the very core of in our humanness. When it finds itself in the midst of conflict, it goes absolutely against the way you asked the question. The way you asked the question was, in the midst of conflict, do those who know you best see you as understanding? And I think at the very core of human conflict, especially with someone who knows how to punch your buttons, it's not even in the, I want to win. I want to come out on top. I want to be, I want to be understood. I want to, just the whole idea of here's conflict, two objects trying to occupy the same spot. And the whole idea of my goal should be understanding, if we're not careful in our humanness, that just goes out the window quickly. And it becomes about winning or coming out on top. So I think that's why it says in the New Testament, husbands, live with your wives in an understanding way. And I think Shirley hit it right on the head. But it takes a shift, and it's a shift that only takes place through the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I think the competition side is it doesn't help the situation when both of us were competitive athletes.
One likes ranch and one likes barbecue.
There you go. That describes our relationship perfectly.
We were at a nutritional speech for athletes at the Empower Sports Academy. And all of a sudden, a hand goes up to ask a question. Which has fewer calories and is healthier for you, ranch dressing or barbecue sauce? Because Will wants to put barbecue sauce on everything, and I prefer ranch dressing with everything.
Nice. Very nice.
You should have seen the eyes on the young nutritionist.
Nice.
What am I going to do?
Ashley asking the question. Nice. There you go. Let's just get this thing figured out right here.
That's been the constant issue of our relationship. Yeah, the ranch dressing. That was actually the one thing. It's kind of funny. We talked about Dr. Cosby earlier, and when we were doing our premarital counseling, he was very wise in saying, hey, anything that irritates you or there's any issues that are under the surface, we need to address now because they're only going to get worse as the marriage goes on. And he asked Ashley, he said, is there anything that really bothers you about William? And, it was very apparent the main issue with Ashley towards me was the fact I didn't like ranch dressing. She loves ranch dressing on everything. So it was kind of a compliment that she thinks I'm perfect.
That was nice. That's good. That's an A, Will.
That's a good start.
Talk about how you proposed.
Yeah, it was actually a whole orchestrated plan that, not that we should be deceitful, but we had deceived my wife into thinking that it was her idea to go up in an airplane with a friend of mine who's a pilot. And we had this whole plan orchestrated, and as my wife and I are so close, I know her like a book, and so I just kept throwing the bait out, and she just kept jumping on it, and the whole thing she really thought was her idea. So we're up in an airplane, and told him to tell them that we had a mapped out course to go up around Auburn and then fly back. And of course I knew we would have to fly right past the family's farm. Here she is directing us. There's Interstate 69 and there's the reservoir and just go this direction. And she's trying to give the pilot directions, not knowing that he had the exact coordinates of the farm. We were planning on flying over it, and we had went and done 16-foot letters in a field that said, "Will you marry me?" And with the help of her mother and her family, had spray painted these big, huge letters. She was so caught up in the moment of being able to see the farm and her grandparents' farm and her parents' farm, and we actually missed it. She didn't even, and so she didn't even see it. And so we had to fly back around a second time.
Focus,
and literally,
focus.
I had to say, "Isn't that the field that we just baled hay in?" And oh yeah. And then there's and missed it again. And
oh my goodness!
And I had to say, but wait, what is that down there? There's something in there. And of course, if you know Ashley, she instantly, once she saw it, the first thought in her mind is, these guys have been lying to me the whole time. and here I was with the camera at that time and the ring out by the time she turned back around. And she never did in the plane say yes. She actually, the first response was to punch me in the arm and then punch the pilot. And it wasn't until we landed that she finally said yes.
Wow.
And
That's
so,
awesome.
That's a good lesson on initiative.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really, really good.
In a
Yes, she did.
deceitful manner, though. I don't know if that's quite appropriate, but.
Well, Proverbs 9:10 is a restatement of the theme of Proverbs in 1:7. The fear of the Lord is a beginning of wisdom, and the fear of the Lord is used something like 12 or 13, 14 times in Proverbs, and it's created great confusion among scholars. And they probably land on this, that the fear of the Lord is actually reverence. There's two kinds of fear. One is what the Bible's most frequent command is, fear not. And that's kind of, a scaredy cat fear, a lack of courage. But there's a slave-like fear, and then there's a fatherly-like fear. One scholar says a slave-like fear is a fear that God would stay, but a fatherly-like fear is one that he would go away. Mm-hmm. So it's this reverence or humility. I think it's Proverbs 22:4 that says that the reward of the fear of the Lord, the reward of humility is the fear of the Lord. So it's bending the knees of your heart to the God of the universe. In essence, square one in wisdom is humbling yourself to the God of the universe. I've heard people say, if you just follow wise principles, good things will happen to you. And they might, but that's by definition different than what the Proverbs is telling us. It's predicated on a fully surrendered relationship, humbling our hearts to the God of the universe. It's not principles void of a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So how has the fear of the Lord changed your approach to conflict?
When it comes to conflict with my wife, when it comes to conflict, difficulty with my kids as they've gotten older at different times along the way, the conflict I've bumped into with others. And I agree with your definition. I really do, and I know you, so I know your heart in that. I believe the fear of the Lord is a deep reverence for him. I am also like a good, healthy, God-honoring dad, as I've watched many of them with their kids. Those kids love that dad. Those kids enjoy that dad, but those kids also know there's times that dad will bring the heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean that in a healthy way. I don't mean that in an abusive way. And so I think when I was younger, I just dealt with it. I just kind of rolled my sleeves up and took my best shot. I think as I've gotten older, I do fear him in that I want to do that well. I want to do it right. And I know that in conflict, there's so many points along the way where I could get off, where I could go away from wisdom. So I really want to revere him. I really want to honor him. I really do fear him in both ways. And I find that it has allowed me in conflict to be a lot slower, a lot more humble, a lot what we've been talking about. It leads me to listen and not say as much. And I have a long ways to go in that, but the fear of the Lord is kind of the centering mechanism that just keeps me, I think, a little lower and a little more humble and a little more patient. I don't know if that made sense.
Well, that's good.
It makes a lot of sense. It for me, it's that sense of the humbleness part, and with that humbleness part of it, it gives me that sense of security. It gives me that sense of rest. I reverently fear him, but I also don't want to hurt him.
Right.
So, and I know there are consequences if I continue in something that is against his will or with an attitude that's not of him. But I also understand that when I reverence him in fear, it's a safe place. It just lets me let down my guard again, and it just lets me know it'll be okay. It's kind of rough right now. Storm is it's raging right now,
Yeah.
but just hold on, stay calm, humble yourself, fear him in that way, and he'll take care of it also. So it's a place of security.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom is a picture of the cross. It's God's heart intersecting with street smarts. Vertically, God's heart intersecting with street smarts. How to make sense of a relationship with God with all the conflict that's around us. That's what Solomon prayed for when God said you could have anything you want. Knowledge of the Holy One as understanding is really quite interesting. Knowledge in Hebrew is da'at, and it's not mental information. It's my innermost being connected with the innermost being of another. So in one word, it would be intimacy with God, which makes that verse just pop. Intimacy with God, intimacy with the Holy One, with the Holy Spirit, is understanding. Understanding is insight. And so there's this electrical current that's available to us through intimacy with the Holy Spirit that helps us be understanding in conflict. He's available to us 24/7 on the fly. That's why I love what you said about war being prepared during times of peace is something that we can do. We can be prepared for conflict by spending time with the Holy Spirit.
I heard a minister he said, intimacy is into me, I see. And so into me, God sees, and into me, I can see him. We're having that intimacy. I see him, he sees me, I understand that he understands me, and I'm understanding him better.
That's beautiful.
And it causes the intimacy.
How does that help you then have insight and understanding for conflict with another person?
When you're having that intimate time with him, he's planting seeds into your heart that when conflict comes, the Holy Spirit will bring that back to you. And it'll give the Holy Spirit, not it, but he will give you what you need just in that moment. And it may be one or two words that can change the whole complex of the whole situation.
Isn't that amazing?
Your perspective can just change just by a couple of words. I remember I was having conflict within myself after my son passed, and went to a football game where my daughter was cheerleading, and all of a sudden my heart got heavy because it was like, why isn't he out there on the football field? And I felt I was on the bleachers, and I almost felt myself going down. And ever so gently, the Holy Spirit says, it's not for him to be there. It's for them to get to where he is.
Wow.
Just those words. I sat up on the bleachers. It just changed everything. Just that one sentence.
Yeah.
But the intimacy, he was able to speak to my heart because of the relationship we have.
And I know we've all said it before, and I've heard you say it before in a lot of different settings, but that right there just, it reminds, I think, all of us of how we feel about anybody who we know that doesn't know him. And you think about the tragedies of life, you think about the heartaches that people go through in the everyday of our world. And even though I've been saying it for years, hearing that, just it's as powerful as it's ever been. My heart breaks for people who live the everyday of life and all that comes with it without any opportunity for intimacy with the one being who can lift a heart and give perspective like he did for you that night in those bleachers.
I think it's Proverbs 12:25. It says the right word at the right time is priceless. I don't know that I've ever thought about God giving me the right word at the right time is priceless for me. That's powerful. That is really powerful. And it's so true. Understanding is a big deal when it comes to conflict, because left to ourselves, we're going to go a different way. You probably all have Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 memorized. Trust in the Lord with some of your heart. Oh, I'm sorry. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Lean not on your own understanding. In some of your ways. No, in all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. I think ways is derek in Hebrew, and it's your steps. And it's those steps that lead to the path, that longer path. My dad used to say, you're going to wake up every morning, Mitchell, and you're going to have choices. And he said, you're going to come to a Y in the road. He said, maybe months, years from now, you're going to say, how did I end up here? He said, it's going to be because every time you came to a Y in the road, you took that choice. He said, they're a powerful thing in your life. And I think it's just amazing how important intimacy with the Holy Spirit is for understanding, because if we're not going to trust in him, you talked about that trust with all of our heart and not lean on our own understanding, it's going to get messy. Our paths are going to be crooked. Our ways will not acknowledge him, our steps.
I mean, it really kind of hits home, with our business as we've grown. Everyone talks about delegate. Well, I can't just delegate until I have somebody that I trust and that I know is going to, go and guide that department in the same direction I would go. And so we've begun to start to mentor people. And it's kind of the same thing as you're doing your leadership training. As we've become intimate with these employees and started to build these relationships, now they start to think like me. They start to talk like me. And I've given you, I know we've talked, Mitch, I've got a young man that I've mentored and, doesn't have as much of a volleyball background, but I have mentored him and he's spent so much time with me and we've talked and discussed the game so much that it's so refreshing to listen to him on the court because he's saying exactly what I want him to say. And to the point I told you a story one time is we gathered these girls, there's probably 30, 40 girls, brought them in. We was getting ready to give them a water break. I was going to give them a couple words of wisdom from what I saw in the clinic. And he said, do you mind if I just say a couple words? I said, yeah, go ahead. And lo and behold, he said exactly what I was going to say. He stole the words right out of my mouth. And I looked at it, and part of me was like, that's what I was going to say. And it was going to sound so great. I had it prepared, and then you just stole it from me. But then it was like God told me, this is how you grow. This is how you continue to touch more athletes and more young kids. And, he's got it. He's because of our relationship, because he's humbled himself and really wants to learn and be the best coach he can become, he's grasped it. And now I can trust him fully when he's coaching and training and doing lessons. And I look at that as far as our relationship with Christ. And the more we're in the Word and through prayer and through, all these different avenues, if we're truly seeking God and having that intimate time to build that relationship, when you come to those Ys in the road, it's easy to know which decision to make because what would God do in this situation? What would you have me to do in these situations? And it makes life so much easier and the decision-making process so much easier and so much less stressful and carefree.
I remember that aha moment I had in my company when I realized that increasing relationships really at the end of the day increased performance. I could teach them relationally how to make the same decision I would make in the same circumstance. And the more I would touch base with them on a daily basis, the more at the end of the year, I really almost didn't need a review because it would be just like we've always discussed, or they do a self-reflection and they're going to say probably what I would say in that self-evaluation. And it's a whole lot different when it comes out of their mouths. It's absolutely amazing. I remember in a meeting with most of my employees and I had something I was going to say and somebody else said it. And it was almost like the Holy Spirit went, whoosh, see? This is actually good. As long as it gets said, it doesn't matter who says it.
Right.
And isn't it maybe even better if they say it?
Yeah.
And that was a powerful aha moment for me. Solomon says in Proverbs 3:13 that when we gain understanding, we're blessed. I think everybody's blessed when we have that insight. But back to what you said, trust in the Lord with all your heart. It's so easy. I think Solomon knew, God knows, we're going to trust with some of our heart. We are going to rely on our own understanding left to ourselves, and that's where we get into danger.
Yeah. When you trust in the Lord with all your heart, you got to really view the fact that you're trusting in a trustworthy God. And so if you don't put so much emphasis on just trusting, but who you are trusting in, it kind of, for me, it just did something. Okay, I got to trust. But no, trust. But think about who you're trusting in. And so when I focus on him and how trustworthy he is and how he showed up so many times over and over and over, it makes trusting in him not a big thing. We're talking about the great I am.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the Almighty.
Right.
And so when I look at who I'm trusting in,
Makes it a lot
it's
easier.
okay.
Yeah.
That's powerful. Well, here's what we want to do. Before every phone call, every text, every email, every social media post, every encounter, we want to live by the 5-second rule. We want to take 5 seconds and ask the Holy Spirit, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but knowledge with the Holy One is understanding. And intimacy with the Holy Spirit is that electrical current that'll give me the understanding and the insight into the people around me during conflict on the fly, in the heat of the moment. And was that heated fellowship?
Yes.
In heated fellowship, I can take 5 seconds and say, hey, God, what do you want me to do? And I think it was Bill Hybels that said basically the difference between being spirit-led or not is 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
Just say,
Yeah.
hey, God, what do you want me to do?
That's good.
So we want to encourage you to memorize Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. And memorize that and recite it to yourself every day, and let it be a reminder or a catalyst that you're going to take 5 seconds. 5 seconds before every email, social media post, text, call, letter, card, note, encounter. And just say, hey, God, what do you want me to do? Maybe we should get wristbands that say the 5-second rule or just hashtag 5 seconds, because it'll be the difference in you or me being spirit-led and actually receiving his understanding, his insight that will help us manage our conflict wisely.